Chapter 19. Gravity is not a trivial monster. In the middle of Infinity Park is this dome, the Infinity Dome. The outside is all mirrors, so that when you walk towards it, you see yourself walking towards you. The entrance is just a narrow door with the mirrors bending inwards. As you get closer, you just melt into your own reflection, like entering a portal to another dimension or something. Inside, it's completely cosmic. The dome is where all the best rides are. These are not rides like you've seen before. Their names are all to do with the history of space exploration. The Giant Leap, Lake of Fear, Sea of Storms. The biggest one, the Vortex, looks like a kitchen blender from the land of giants. When we arrived that morning, it was whirling round so fast on its spindle it looked like it might come loose and take off. There was an old man named Mr. Bean in charge of it. I mean, he looked old, but he also looked young. His eyes were bright and shiny, and he walked like he was weightless. He gave us this big hello when we arrived, pressed some buttons, and the vortex slowed right down. You'll never guess what's in here, Dr. Drax smiled. No one had any idea of what could possibly be inside a 20-foot blender. Dr. Drax nodded at Mr. Bean. He winked at us, then pressed some more buttons. The door opened, a ramp appeared, and down the ramp came Shen Jian. Everyone gasped. You were in there, said Florida. How could you be in there? If they spun me round like that, I'd turn to soup. Shen Jian bowed and then stood up straight to show she wasn't soup. The vortex, said Dr. Drax, is really just a big washing machine. When you're ready, we're going to pop you inside and spin you round till you feel like old knickers. How does that sound? Uncomfortable, said Florida. It certainly will be. At first, but soon you will be able to cope with it, just like Shen Jian. Look, she's not even dizzy. Shen Jian bowed again to show us that she was not only soup, she was not even dizzy. Yesterday we had great fun finding out what it was like to experience less gravity than usual. Today you're going to get a taste of what it's like to experience a lot more gravity than usual. That's what happens when we spin you in our centrifuge. Excited? Somehow being whirled in a massive washing machine didn't seem as appealing as floating around inside a big aeroplane. Florida was still trying to get her mind around the whole gravity thing. If less gravity makes you float in the air, she said, won't extra gravity make us sink into the ground? Samson too giggled. Max tittered. Samson 1 rolled his eyes. Monsieur Martinet snorted. A few days ago I might have laughed too, but now I felt different. I said, no, Florida, you won't sink through the floor, but you'll feel heavy. You are going to experience 15G, said Dr. Drax. That's 15 times your normal gravity. That's more than 3 times as much gravity as you get on the Cosmic. I tried to imagine a version of the Cosmic that was 3 times as big as the one in Enchantment Land. The man who runs the Cosmic said that lots of people passed out at 5G. We were going to hit 3 times that. This really was going to be a scary ride. Mr. Bean opened the steel doors wide. Inside was a big metal arm with a little seat on each end. If Origama Doorhammer, Orc Lord of Durotar, had made a seesaw, that's what it would look like. So, said Dr. Drax, you'll weigh 15 times more than you usually do. Florida put her hand up and said, are you saying we're going to put on weight? They all giggled. Florida didn't react. She knew they were going to laugh at her, and she still asked the question because she wanted to know. I said, you will put on weight, but you'll lose it again the moment you return to normal gravity. And then I said, okay, princess? She beamed at me. Okay, daddy. Dr. Drax went on. I know 15G sounds like absolutely heaps of gravity, but the body can take more than that. David Purley, the racing driver, once experienced 180G and lived to tell the tale. If he can do it, so can you. Samson 1 said, that seems like a lot of gravity in a car. How did he do that? He drove straight into a brick wall with his throttle wide open. He was doing 107 miles an hour. Now then, who's first? Are you sure he survived? Yes, he did. Or did he? Oh, I'm not sure. Anyway, rockets are much safer than cars. Samson 2 said, are you sure rockets are safer than cars? Of course they are, said Florida. They don't have brick walls in space, do they? Monsieur Martinet wanted Max to go in first because that's what winning is all about. But Max wouldn't budge. And when his dad tried to shove him in, he just kept shouting, no, I don't want to go. Monsieur Martinet was hissing at him, you're embarrassing me. Eddie Xanadu tried to bribe Hassan to get in. Hassan wasn't moving either. His dad was snarling, you're making me look like a fool. Samson 1 tried to explain to Samson 2 that gravity was just a natural force and nothing to be afraid of. That wasn't working either. Even though his dad was growling, "Think of your reputation." I said to Florida, "We should go on first, show them what a good team we are." "I'm not going in there." "Did you ever go on the Cosmic?" "No, I was too short, remember?" "Pepsi Max?" "Q was too long." "Traumatizer?" "Ooh, too scary." "Well, I've been on big rides, and this thing here, it's just a big ride. Do you want to know what the worst bit of a big ride is?" "What?" "The queue, the waiting, the anticipation, watching everybody else screaming and turning green. That's way, way, way the worst thing. It's tons better to go first. And if we go first, all these others, all the people who were laughing at you before, they'll have to stand there watching us getting more and more scared." She liked the sound of that. We strolled past Monsieur Martinet while he was poking Max in the chest, and Eddie Xanadu, who was waving a wad of money at Hassan, and Samson 1, who was drawing a diagram to prove to Samson 2 that gravity wasn't scary. We walked past all of them right up to the machine. "Florida Digby," Dr. Drax smiled. "You certainly seem to have the right stuff to be a takenaut." Mr. Bean came into the vortex with us and showed us how to strap ourselves into the seats, one at each end of the evil seesaw. My seat was, obviously, too small. I had to tuck my legs up really tight to get into the harness. Now that we were in there, I could see that Florida was starting to get nervous. I said, "Mr. Bean, has anyone ever died on this?" "On this old thing? No, sir, not one. You take some wire things into the ends of our fingers. Please don't say, but there's always a first time." "Well, now, I'm going to make sure that you're not the first. I'm going to monitor all your heartbeats and whatnot. You start to malfunction, I'll stop the whole thing." For a while, nothing happened. It was just really, really quiet. Florida said, "I'm really, really scared now." But just think, if we're really, really scared, they must be really, really, really scared. And in a few minutes, we won't be scared at all. You'll be all right, princess. Actually, you can stop calling me princess now. It sounds weird when you say it. Thanks all the same. There was a deafening thunk. We both screamed. Our chairs jumped sideways, then stopped dead. Phew, I thought, it's broken. Then it started. If you've ever been on the Cosmic, you'll know what 4G is like. You feel a bit sick and scared, but if you spread your arms out and pretend you're flying, you feel better. As you blast into the air, you can think, this is bad, but this is as bad as it gets. It gets easier any second. But the Vortex was different. On the Vortex, 4G was only the beginning. A voice came over the loudspeaker telling us we were now at 5G. You can't spread your arms out at 5G. You can't move them at all. It feels like the air has turned to concrete and you're stuck in it. It's hard to breathe, but you think, we must be near the end now. We must slow down now. But we didn't slow down. We went faster. The voice said we were 8G. Now my eyeballs felt like little shriveled raisins. I couldn't see anything except a muddy blur, but still we didn't stop. We went faster. At 12G, you feel flat, two-dimensional, like Itchy and Scratchy run over by a steamroller. I thought I was dead. I was even starting to enjoy being dead when I heard the voice again, saying we were now at 15G. The sentence didn't come and go like an ordinary sentence. It seemed to stay in my ears, steady like the noise of a humming top. Then my chest exploded, but the air was so thick that all the bits of me couldn't fly away. They just stayed there in the same shape but not connected anymore. Then we slowed down. And that was just like Itchy and Scratchy too, when the steamroller's gone and someone comes along with a foot pump and pumps them back up to their normal shape. Amazing. For a minute I didn't say anything because I thought if I opened my mouth I might deflate again. I looked over at Florida and she said something like, ha ha ha, woo! And I said, cock-a-doodle-doo, which is not something I usually say. The door opened. I was so proud of us that I tried to stroll out and swagger past the others. Unfortunately, I seemed to have lost my swagger control skills and ended up swaggering sideways. Sit down, Florida. Sit down, Mr. Digby. Take a rest. You've done very well. I think she probably meant us to sit down on something, but as soon as she said it, I let my legs go, and so did Florida. We just sort of plonked ourselves down on the floor. Monsieur Martinet was still hissing at Max. Eddie Xanadu was pleading with Dr. Drax to let Hassan be excused. Dear little Hassan really doesn't want to do it. I'm afraid dear little Hassan will have to do it, unless he doesn't want to go to space. I thought some people just have no control over their children, and everyone went quiet and looked at me. Apparently, I thought this out loud. Very loud. So, snarled Monsieur Martinet, You think you can do better? I think I already did. I shrugged and pointed at Florida. She gave him a cheeky little wave. I should have left it at that, but now that he'd said it, I did think I could do better. Samson, too, was now squealing, I'm not going, I'm not going, I'm not going, I'm not going, I'm not going. And to think that they'd laughed at Florida. It would serve his dad right if I could get his son to go in there when he couldn't. I decided to engage. Hey, Samson, too, what's the biggest ride you've ever been on? He looked blank. Have you ever been on an inverted roller coaster? No. Have you been on an ordinary roller coaster? No. Inverted bungee? I was on a seesaw once. A seesaw? Not a real seesaw. It was a really large model used for demonstrating the action of vectors around a fulcrum, but while my father wasn't looking, I sat on it. Sorry, Father. So there was no one on the other end of the seesaw? No, but I solved that problem easily by propelling myself upwards with my legs repeatedly, in effect making myself into a vector. And that's the only ride you've ever been on, a one-ended seesaw. It was fun. No wonder he was scared. Imagine going on something like the Vortex if you've never ever been on a proper seesaw. I tried to explain to him about rides, about how in a few moments' time the dome would be full of people paying money, queuing up, desperately wanting to go on the Vortex for fun. But why won't they be scared? Oh, they will be scared. They'll be terrified, but they want to be terrified. It's a nice feeling, a tingly feeling. And they'll be with their friends, and their friends will be teasing them and daring them. You know, we're very lucky. We've beaten the queues. He looked over at the Vortex and said, Okay, I'll go. I grinned at Samson 1, thinking, that'll teach you to laugh at us. Then Samson 2 said, As long as you come with me. What? You say it's fun, you must want to do it again. Well, I wouldn't. It wouldn't be fair on your dad if I took his turn. I don't mind, said Samson 1 a bit too quickly. Well, maybe Dr. Drax wouldn't agree. It's hard to fault the child's logic, Mr. Digby, said Dr. Drax. Once you're rested, there's no reason why you shouldn't go into the Vortex again. It wasn't so bad the second time. The only trouble was I was just thinking to myself, this seat is tiny. I'm really uncomfortable and I can't move. When we came to the bit where time stands still, so that big depressing thought just sat there in front of my brain for ages and ages, blotting everything out and making it all seem worse. So if you've ever had to endure a period of prolonged weightiness, my tip is that you try and have a happy thought. When we'd finished, it took Samson a moment to get his breath. Then he said, Is it over? Yes, what did you think? It was very informative. Informative? Yes, gravity's not a bit like it looks in the diagrams. When we came out, even though it felt like we'd been in there for years, nothing had changed. Hassan was still telling his dad that he wouldn't go in there, and Monsieur Martinet was still poking Max in the chest and calling him a loser. Max was taking no notice until he saw me. Then he said, I'll go in. Good boy, Max, said Monsieur Martinet, glancing at Mr. Xanadu. You could see that when he said good boy, he really meant better than your boy. As long as I go in with him, said Max, pointing at me. When I climbed into the Vortex for the third time, I concentrated on happy thoughts of all the great stuff I'd done since deciding to be a grown-up, walking in the Gobi Desert and driving a car and flying in a plane when I should have been in Waterloo High Playground. Max leaned forward in his chair and said, I voted for you last time. You did? I wondered who had voted for me. I never for a minute thought it was him. I vote for you this time too. I vote for you because I want you to come with us, not my father. I want you to come because you are a loser. A what? A loser. I'm not a loser. I'm gifted and talented. When you were running down the sand dune, that made me laugh, he said. And when you were rolling on the floor in the spacesuit, remember? Not the details. When you do stupid things? They weren't that stupid. Will you do something stupid today, please? I'll give it my best shot. Thanks for that. Then, thunk. And we were off again. Only this time, when I got to the forever bit, instead of thinking about flying and walking in the desert, the word loser stuck in the front of my brain and stayed there. When we came out, Hassan was still saying he wouldn't go in. Dr. Drax said, the child needs more time to prepare himself mentally. Perhaps this would be a good opportunity for the other dads to take their turn. Samson 1 and Monsieur Martinet can ride together, and then Mr. Xanadu can go in with Hassan. They looked a bit unsure, but what could they say? They took their turn, and this time I got to watch from the outside. To start with, the washing machine chugged around at something like a speed of light woolens wash. Then it went up to a gear something like colour-fast cottons, and after that, worryingly fast, like a spin dryer, and then it suddenly started to slow down again. I said, "What happened? Has something gone wrong?" "No," said Dr. Drax, "that's the complete cycle. They've been in there just as long as you were." "But I was in there loads longer than that." "They were in there just the same time as you were, namely 6 minutes, including 1 minute at 15G. 1 minute!" "Why?" said Dr. Drax, examining her fingernails. "Did it feel longer than that?" "It felt like a whole chapter of my life, say about as long as I've been at primary school." When the dads got out of the vortex, Florida was excited by the possibility that they might be sick, but they weren't. When they were done, Hassan looked at me and said, "Everybody else went on with you. I want to go on with you." "I'm a bit tired." "That's so unfair. Everyone else got to go on with you. Why shouldn't I?" Dr. Drax said that she really thought I'd made my contribution already today. Hassan said, "Daddy, tell him he has to go on with me." "I'm afraid your daddy can't tell him that," said Dr. Drax, "because it isn't true." Eddie Xanadu sidled up to me and said, "How much to make it worth your while, Digby? A watch? A car, perhaps?" "A car? No, thanks." "I don't think you'll be able to bribe Mr. Digby, Mr. Xanadu," said Dr. Drax. Then Hassan said to me very quietly, "Come on with me and I'll vote for you." And I realised that though Mr. Xanadu couldn't bribe me, his son really could. Knowing that the lifetime at 15G was only a minute made the fourth time easier. I was just starting to get my happy thoughts ready when Hassan said, "There was a war in my country." "Oh yeah?" "Soldiers came to our village. They wanted to take away all the children, but my father paid the most important soldier some money so he wouldn't take me away." You could hear the engine warming up outside. Hassan started to talk more quickly. "That's why he loves money, because it can help." Well, fair enough. And the reason he always wants more money. I watched all my friends being taken away, all the children from my school. I watched our house burning down. He had told me this, and when the engine started, and in my head I saw Glenarm Close, Bootle, all in flames, and Mum and Dad and Florida all being taken away by soldiers. That's what I was thinking about when I got to the forever bit. I was still thinking about it when the ride was over, but Hassan was grinning. He said, "That was fantastic. I could do that again. I suppose anything is fantastic compared to having your house burnt down and your mates led away." He bounced out of the machine. "Don't forget to vote," I called after him. Scores. Me, 6. Eddie Xanadu, 6. Monsieur Martinet, 2. Samson 1, 2. Everyone had voted for me.